the overriding theme of today, I think, is pain and shame, right? So I have a 25-year-old nephew who lives in Minnesota, and the Friday before the election, he went to a Trump rally to see if he could talk to people and understand them. He comes from a family, my sister is his mother, that's amazingly screwed up. They're fundamentalist Catholic and they're one issue voters. And so he grew up in that environment. And now he's out into the world and has swung the other way. So he's very liberal, but he's also in this place of, how do I talk to people who are my parents? How do I understand them? How do I reach them? And so he went to this Trump rally. One of the things that came up that struck me, this is a really tiny sample, okay? Only a couple of people in Minnesota. But one of the things came up was a lot of people he spoke with mentioned South Park. And the idea is that people of power, like people who create television and people who create that, shame them. They are made fun of in a way that really sinks in. So you're at a political rally and somebody talks to you and South Park comes up, that actually says something really significant to me. And knowing his mother, my sister, she is somebody who embodies shame, unhealed shame, and has gone to religion so that she doesn't have to go into her shame, right? Mm. And so I'm beginning to understand, maybe we don't have a political problem, we have a shame problem, we have a pain problem, unresolved, unhealed pain, right? So I was thinking about this. Here's a James Baldwin quote just to throw on top of this. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hates so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. Oh. So there's this book I've been thinking a lot about, and I want to give you some ideas from the book, and then we're going to do a meditation. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Resmaa Menakem. He's got a book called My Grandmother's Hands. He's a Black man. His grandmother's hands were bent and calloused because she picked cotton. And he's written this book that is about, he's a therapist. And he has these amazing ideas. He doesn't talk about white supremacy, he talks about white body supremacy. And he talks about white bodies and black bodies and red bodies and brown bodies and how to heal the pain that is in our bodies, right? Pain and trauma that's in our bodies. So if we think about the idea that Philip talks about, and we've talked about here before, that we pass through our DNA, through our ancestry, we pass trauma, right? 7 generations. So if a generation is 20 or 25 years, that's 175 years, which means we hold in our body, it's possible that we hold in our bodies things that stretch back to 1845, 20 years before slavery ended. So the white bodies here hold slave ownership, right? The black bodies who've been here in this circle, but certainly on the planet with us, hold slavery. The brown bodies were lynched in this country and segregated, right? And the red bodies were imprisoned in their own home, right? So all of that feels interesting and big to me. And this guy, Resmaa Menakem, his book is really, really beautiful. I pulled a couple of thoughts. Violence and anger in our country is a reflection of what's happening inside our bodies. And the conflict resolution has to start there. We have to touch the pain inside our bodies, feel it and explore it. before anything is going to happen outside of our bodies, right? He suggests that healing doesn't necessarily happen in the mind, it happens in the body.
Mm.
Body does not have a cognitive process. It's only physical. It feels either a sense of safety or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, it will do almost anything to establish safety. And here's the part that I think about the story that you said, Kate. Whenever someone freaks out suddenly or reacts to a small problem as if it were a catastrophe, it's a trauma response. It's a reflex based on energy that's stuck in our nervous system.
Yeah.
And unless it's healed, it gets passed on to families and communities and cultures. Okay, so
Wow.
all of that. And I was just thinking about a meditation that maybe we can start to touch on the idea that what makes us the same, however you voted, is that we have pain, and different people ignite the pain or speak to the pain. So let's just sink in for a minute. Close your eyes. And I want you to imagine yourself out in nature somewhere. It can be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter if you've been there before or not. Just find yourself in a place in nature that feels right in this moment. And now you're going to create a circle around yourself. You can draw it with a stick. You can collect rocks and put them in a circle, or flowers or whatever, but create a circle around yourself that's about as wide as your outstretched arms. And as you do that, I'm going to go back into some Native American teachings. Philip has mentioned several times, I don't know if you've noticed it, he talks about a hoop. He would often say that our gathering together was a sacred hoop. And there are different kinds of hoops that we create, but the most important hoop is the one that we create for ourselves. So this circle that you've created, according to Native Americans, is your hoop. Only you are inside your hoop. Your friends, your family, your relationship, they're not in your hoop. And according to Native American teaching, your only job in life is to understand your own energy. What's inside this hoop right now, to understand it, to listen to it, to feel it, to strengthen it, to change it, and to keep it sacred. This is you, this is all you inside this sacred space. And the circle around you is the boundary you maintained. And if something is inside that doesn't belong, put it back outside the hoop. So here we are, each in our hoop. And now imagine that your ancestors begin to join you and they create a wide circle around you. If I did the math right, there are 128 ancestors who form this circle around you. These are your parents and each of their parents and each of their parents, going back 7 generations. Your ancestral lines are connected to these people who are now standing around you. Your DNA, your body's knowledge, your trauma, it's made up from these people. And just feel that for a moment. If you can see these people, that's great. If it's just a sensation or an energy, that's great. You don't have to work too hard at this, at who they are, what they look like. Just breathe and feel them. Your history stretching back 7 generations, 175 years. And now remember that your body stores 2 things. It's either safety or danger. And these things can take different forms. They can feel like warmth or coolness or openness or constriction or pressure or numbness or softness or energy. So just take a minute and try to register what you're feeling in your body right now. What is calling to you? And now that you're feeling some sensations, I want you to kind of check in and do a full body scan. And when you register something in your body that does not serve you, something that's in your body that was stored as danger or fear or trauma, I want you to imagine yourself removing it and placing it outside your hoop. And you can do that in any way that comes to you. You can merely put it outside your hoop. You can give it back to an ancestor. But I just want to take a couple of minutes for us to feel everything that is in our body and take out what does not serve us. And breathe. My own exploration with my own healing process suggests that injuries and dis-ease are merely things that are calling for our attention. We can heal those things by recognizing what they're telling us, or prevent illness or injury by listening to our bodies. In this book, My Grandmother's Hands, I'll just read this one paragraph that he writes. For America to outgrow the bondage of white body supremacy, white Americans need to imagine themselves in black bodies and experience what those bodies had to endure. They also need to do the same with the bodies of their own white ancestors. And then they need to ask themselves the question, if we don't address our ancient historical trauma, what will we pass down to our children and to their children and grandchildren? I'm just going to end with a poem by somebody named, it's a big name, Rabindranath Tagore. I had to look him up. He died 1841, I think, right around the time we're talking about the beginning of our ancestors. Um, he was a poet in Bengali, I think. This is a poem called The Borderland Nine. I saw, in the twilight of flagging consciousness, my body floating down in an ink black stream with its mass of feelings, with its varied emotion, with its many colored lifelong store of memories, with its flute song. And as it drifted on and on, its outlines dimmed, and among familiar tree shaded villages on the banks, the sounds of evening, worship grew faint, doors were closed, lamps were covered, boats were moored to the ghats. Crossings from either side of the stream stopped. Night thickened. From the forest branches, fading birdsong offered self sacrifice to a huge silence. Dark formlessness settled over all diversity of land and water. As shadow, as particles, my body fused with endless night. I came to rest at the altar of the stars. Alone, amazed, I stared upwards with hands clasped and said, Sun, you have removed your rays. Show now your loveliest, kindliest form, that I may see the person who dwells in me as in you. It's good to see you all.